So I've gone through quite a saga here on this fuel system with the old pickup truck. Cleaned out the carburetor, put in new fuel filters, each time kept coming, blew out the fuel line, eventually replaced the gas tank. So now it should be clear all the way, but still have to circle back to this carburetor and clean it out really well once and for all, because a couple of issues with dirt in the carburetor. One, messes up the fuel air ratio by blocking the jets and so forth, and it can keep the float from closing fully and makes the fuel overflow out of the vent float bowl. And in fact, that's just what happened with this car, and the carburetor caught on fire. So we put that out, and I don't know exactly how hot it got. The infrared meter, the fire department triggered onto it looked like a gun. A little handheld meter said that the carburetor was almost 250 degrees. So one of the things I'm going to do is replace the rubber parts inside too, like the accelerator pump. So let's get started. This is the kit, carburetor repair kit. Melted from the fire. This was a bit of plastic that came off a bag I threw over it to try and get the film, to put out the flame myself. This is a new fuel line. The other one was completely melted. This is just held on by a spring clip, so I can pop this off. That's a spring on that ball thing. That was not a very good connection. Again, melted. So I think I'll just go to a single fitting here rather than this contraption. This is the distributor hose for the vacuum on the distributor. This is new. The other one was melted off. That's obviously not in the right place. Okay, so that's everything that needs to be disconnected other than the bolts. So I'll get these bolts off of here. Nuts. Carburetor should come right off as I get this bolt and the other one on the other side off. Okay, this is the last thing to take off, and the carburetor should just come right off. Okay, there we have it. So find a clean place to work on this. Missing 1-2 screws, but probably without those. You can see some of the soot from the fire, and hornet trying to build a nest in here. The whole thing was just melted. I took it off and tied it. I'm going to convert it to manual. A lot of rust in the bottom of the bowl there. This is the valve right here, the float valve. So when fuel in this small tank rises to the level that it closes, that sets the fuel level in the tank just right. But if there's dirt in this valve, you can see that that's what seats down in there, and even the smallest little crumb will keep it from completely sealing, and then the level in the tank will rise up. This is a vent, and gasoline will just pour out of here. And that's how the fire started. This is the accelerator pump in here, and that's what I'm most worried about, because that has a rubber diaphragm that might have melted or been compromised, so I want to get that replaced. Hit the gas pedal, squirts gas down into the, looks like it's working. See it squirting down out of that thing to give it a little extra shot. But still, I want to replace it and make sure there's no damage. This is a valve that's part of the accelerator pump. I'm not sure what it does. Maybe it's like an overflow valve. If this nozzle gets plugged, it gives it somewhere to go. It's just a weight and a ball. Before I take this apart, I'm just going to clean it out with some carburetor cleaner. I had to get a new pair of gloves. The carburetor cleaner ruined the gloves. Pretty strong stuff. What I really am wanting to replace today is this, and clean everything out. So I'm going to start with the top. We'll just take off this seat for the float valve and clean it, make sure there's nothing underneath it, and replace this filter. Not sure if this copper adapter or brass adapter is going to be necessary. Take this out. Looks pretty clean actually, but I'm going to give it a squirt with the carburetor cleaner just to get every little last speck out. There was a little dirt in there, just cleaned it out with this carburetor cleaner. I'll just take off this wire I was using to hold the choke open so I can get home. Okay, so goes the spring and this rod. Okay. Hit it upside down. Okay. So now I look up in here so we can measure if this is the right distance. So here's the float, X and Y. Now I go over here to the chart, find the year, 78, and here are the measurements in different categories. So I'll set that now. It says for one type of float use the X and the other type of float use the Y. Since the float that I have is kind of tapered under here, I'm assuming we're going to use the X. And it's supposed to be 25-30 seconds. Looks like it's not quite set properly. It's set to about 28, so I'm going to get a pair of needle nose pliers and adjust this. Try that. Okay, so measuring to the bottom of the indentation here, it looks pretty good. Let's see if this will fit in there. It does. I think I'll put a little sealant on there first. Okay, the next measurement is supposed to be 1 and 19/30 seconds to the top of this for the float drop. Obviously that's way too far, so we need to adjust that. That's this tab right here. That was too much. Okay, now we're at 1:24, 30 seconds instead of 19, so we're getting pretty close. Okay, now that's 25. And that's a little more than 19, but I'm gonna let it go. Alright, so now I'm going to unscrew this and see if I can wiggle this out without taking the rest of this apart. Okay, so it looks like this is just going to lift right off now. I'd say that's the main jet down in there where this needle goes, and so this needle adjusts the size of the jet, and it's a little dirty, needs to be cleaned. So there's some play here. Hopefully I can just unscrew these 3 or 4 star screws and then wiggle this out without having to mess with this, because it's a lever that I don't want to have to figure out how to disconnect. Okay, so we'll just take these out. Okay, to get the last screw. Now if I can just slide this rubber tube off. There we go. Now let's see if this will come out. It's loose now, but I think I'm going to have to take this rod off to get it out. So the easiest way is just going to be to take the 4 screws out. These screws are pretty loose. Okay, so their goal is to get this off of here. There we go. This is the throttle body. Seems okay. Okay. Alright, so over we go. Now this can come out. Now the accelerator can come out. So I don't know if it was melted or not, but it's certainly falling apart. It's got cracks in it. It needs to be replaced. Not to mention a lot of rust. Look at all that. There's the new one. Just going to clean this up before we put it all back together. So a lot of rust down in that housing, and I'm going to take this, or at least try and take this jet out to clean that area too. I'm not sure what that jet is, but I'm going to take that out and clean it too. Okay, everything's clean now. Put it all back together and let's see how it runs. Okay, that looks like it'll be out of the way there. Okay, spring. Now this keeper. Okay. Now the hose. Okay, let's put this hose back on. Now the screws. Okay, now let's put that other stuff back on there. Okay, a new gasket was not included in this kit, so that's unfortunate since it looks like there's some leakage right there. See right there? But maybe just tightening the screws properly will solve that problem. Looks like there might have been some leakage right here too. Okay, so hopefully by just tightening the screws that will solve that problem. It's going to be a little tricky to get this back in there. Okay, that looks like it's in. I'm just going to try and squeeze it a little bit and get it all the way in. There. Whew. Okay. The gasket slipped out in that process, so I'm just going to lift it up and slide it back in. Okay, so I'm just going to slide this back in place. Alright, there we go. Okay, looks pretty well lined up now. Okay, so we got everything lined up. Now I'm going to tighten these screws. Okay, this thing put back together. We can check the adjustment. Okay, with this all the way down, this is supposed to be touching the bottom, so there's a little play there. I need to tighten this screw to make this adjustment perfect. I don't have that size star wrench, so I'm going to use this. Okay, now let's try it. One more twist. Okay, that's it. Okay. trying to tighten these up evenly so that hopefully reusing the old gasket doesn't leak, you know, air leak or gas leak. Okay. The next step is converting from electric choke to manual choke. All the electric stuff burned up in the fire. This is the new manual choke kit. That's how the choke works. There it is right there. Now we're going to actuate it with this. So this lever fits in this notch, and in order to keep this lever from going too far inside and just missing it, we're going to put a clip on here. Okay, well, let's just try it out. A little stiff, but there we go. Okay, it's gonna work. Next thing is another clip on the outside. Okay, there we go. This is this thing. Okay, so I don't know where this needs to be adjusted yet, so just leave it slightly loose. This is what holds the cable. Cable will go in that little hole. Okay, so that's enough for now. Let's just get it on the carburetor and get the truck running again. Okay, so first we put this I guess that's a dust seal, and line up this notch. Okay. Oh, this compression ring. So I'm just going to put these 3 screws in and we'll be ready to reinstall the carburetor. Okay, so we should be able to make that work. These 2 pipes just circulated through the exhaust manifold to heat up the automatic choke, but I'm not using that anymore, so we're just going to leave these where they are. It's just a closed circuit to the choke chamber. There was only one new gasket at the parts store, so we're going to reuse one of the old gaskets. There's the one new one that was available. And there we go, back on. Okay, now I'll just put these 2 nuts back on, and the fuel line and the accelerator connection. We should be able to start it up. I'm going to replace this with this. Okay, new brake booster hose. PCV valve hose too. Cut some of this excess off. It's summertime here, and running the choke cable is kind of a big job, so for the time being I'm just going to wire it open and put the choke cable in another day. So I just need to find something here to tie it to. I guess the manifold. Okay, we're going to try it. It's going to take some cranking to fill everything back up with fuel. Okay, after 200 miles, it's still running pretty well. Let's see how it starts up. It's cold.